Combined, the logistics operations of FedEx and UPS account for 10% of the United States gross domestic product. FedEx built its empire in the air, but invested heavily to build a massive ground delivery network, directly challenging UPS on its home turf. In response, UPS aggressively constructed an airborne fleet to invade FedEx's airspace. In a mature industry, market share is never a permanent title. It is contested territory that requires constant capital defense. Gaining or protecting a single percentage point of that territory relies on executing strict, formal strategic maneuvers. Having a good product is merely the baseline requirement. To understand these maneuvers, we have to look at market stratification. Mature industries naturally settle into a predictable, structured hierarchy. At the top is the market leader, commanding around 40% of the available territory. Directly beneath them is the market challenger, holding roughly 30%, positioned specifically to usurp the top spot. Next is the market follower at 20%, prioritizing stability over aggressive expansion. The remaining 10% belongs to market nichers, surviving by specializing in subsegments too small for the major players. A company cannot simply choose to attack or defend at will. Their tactical options are strictly dictated by where they currently sit within this hierarchy. For the 40% market leader, engaging in a direct marketing battle with a challenger to gain a single point of market share yields a remarkably low return on investment. The dominant firm relies on a different mechanism, expanding the total size of the market itself. When the entire pie grows, the firm holding the largest existing slice captures the highest volume of absolute revenue. Expanding total demand requires one of two things: finding entirely new users or accelerating the consumption velocity of the existing customer base. Accelerating usage is particularly difficult for utility products that degrade slowly over time, where replacement cycles naturally stretch out over years. Look at how Monroe approached their shock absorbers. The reality is that they wear down gradually. Consumers overestimate their lifespan, waiting for failure before replacing them. To counter this, Monroe tied the replacement cycle to a hard numerical milestone, 50,000 miles. By establishing a strict, quantifiable metric for expiration, they successfully increased the frequency of consumer purchases without having to acquire a single new customer. This maps the 6 defense vectors available to a market leader. When market expansion stalls, the firm must actively protect its share from challengers. The most aggressive posture is preemptive defense, launching actions across the board to neutralize challengers before an attack materializes. This requires achieving broad market envelopment. The leader occupies so much territory that competitors are starved of the visibility and resources needed to mount a counteroffensive. Take the retail banking sector. By constructing a nationwide network of over 6,000 physical branches, massive national players deploy a geographic barrier. Local and regional banks simply cannot bypass this sheer density of infrastructure. On the opposite end of the spectrum is the contraction defense, also known as strategic withdrawal. This maneuver occurs when a leader accepts that it can no longer physically defend all its expanded territories. It must surrender weaker markets to reassign capital back to its core operations. The multi-billion-dollar restructuring of Kraft in 2012 serves as a pristine execution of this concept. Through years of aggressive corporate acquisitions, Kraft had built an unmanageable portfolio spanning dozens of distinct grocery and snack categories. The portfolio contained a fatal structural tension. Slow-growth heritage brands like Maxwell House Coffee and Velveeta Cheese were diluting the performance metrics of high-growth global snacking brands like Oreo and Cadbury. To solve this, CEO Irene Rosenfeld initiated a complete structural severance of the two divisions. The result were two entirely distinct entities: a highly focused North American grocery business, retaining the Kraft name, and a newly freed global snacking corporation, branded as Mondelez International. Market leaders must analyze their holdings with cold objectivity. Protecting a defensible core often requires amputating highly profitable but strategically disjointed divisions. For the 30% market challenger, the calculus changes entirely. Their sole objective is targeted usurpation. This map details the 5 specific attack vectors available to a trailing firm aiming at the leader. The most direct, and statistically the most dangerous, is the frontal attack. Attempting to directly match a dominant leader on product specifications, price points, and distribution networks almost guarantees failure. Military strategy dictates that a pure frontal assault requires the attacker to possess a 3-to-1 resource advantage over the defender just to break the front line. Challengers, by definition, lack this capital. The geometrically superior maneuver is the flank attack. Flanking requires the challenger to identify shifts in consumer behavior that the leader has ignored and aggressively rush to fill those geographic or demographic gaps. When Under Armour launched, it avoided challenging Nike's dominance in traditional cotton athletic wear. Instead, it pioneered a strict focus on synthetic, moisture-wicking compression garments. By securing this highly specific performance category, Under Armour built extreme brand loyalty with athletes before Nike's massive cotton-heavy supply chain could retool and respond. Successful challengers do not defeat leaders by executing the leader's strategy better. They win by shifting the battleground entirely to undefended coordinates. If the 40% leader commands superior capital and defensive infrastructure, the logical objective seems simple: continuously acquire rivals until capturing 100% of the market. This graph of profitability against market share reveals a mathematical barrier: optimal market share. Initially, economies of scale drive profitability upward, reaching a peak around 50% where margins maximize. Expansion past this optimal peak has an inverse effect. Pursuing total dominance actively destroys profitability. Moving into monopoly territory triggers crippling operational costs. The firm must allocate massive capital to fend off antitrust litigation, constant legal challenges, and legislative lobbying. Furthermore, multi-source buyers, companies that require diverse supply chains, will actively redirect their capital to prop up smaller competitors simply to prevent a monopoly from forming. Finally, capturing the last 20% of an industry means attempting to serve hostile, specialized niche segments. The cost to acquire and satisfy these holdouts far exceeds the revenue they generate. Ultimate corporate strategy is not a blind pursuit of total conquest. It is the ability to calculate your exact optimal position on the curve, achieve it, and ruthlessly defend it.